Hello again, and welcome to the Fantasy Sultans Championship Week. We have reached Week 17 in the NFL. He is the Hall of Famer, Mike Sheck. I am Tripp Rogers. We are happy that you've decided to join us and spend part of your holiday with us. Hopefully, the fantasy gods have been good to you, and you are playing a meaningful game this weekend, unlike the Sultans in the Sultans League.
Yeah.
You are playing Stephanie, who has no kicker, who can't replace the kicker because the commissioner locked out those who aren't in the championship. I am playing Josh for 7th place. But our podcast 2 toy, Mac, is playing for the championship. Ladies and gentlemen, will miracles never cease? He takes on Ben, and they're the top 2 seeds in the league. So, listen, it's nice it comes down to the top 2, but very rarely do you see the top 2 seeds get through because usually, you will have a bad week along the way. And yeah. I mean, I got to give props. Ben has been very consistent. He won the league a couple years ago. He was in the money last year, if I'm not mistaken. And, He's in the championship this year, and of course we're rooting very hard for him, just simply because of the fact that we want to be able to abuse our podcast chew toy.
And Tripp, I'm just getting off of the Christmas vacation trivia that I did the other night, and you know what I got to say about that? Holy bleep! Where's the Tylenol?
Well, okay, I have discovered I have a service that they have a channel with Home Alone movies. They replay the Home Alone movies. So, I'm staying up till 2:00 in the morning last night watching Home Alone. Of course, you can't turn it off when they come to the house. And then tonight, Sandy and I watched Home Alone 2. And we picked it up just as they're getting to the airport, and it was great. We watched just about the whole movie. It was really good. I mean, you can't turn them off. It's like a car wreck. You got to sit there and watch it. It's that good, Speaking of good, I guess another week of the good, the bad, the ugly. Boy, talk about the wheels coming off. Kansas City will now go to another quarterback. On the same week, they announced they're going to move their team to a new dome stadium in Kansas. I checked in with a friend who is a Kansas resident, says this is a very good thing. One of the things about Kansas City that I did not know is it's essentially 85-15, or that's how it seems in terms of Missouri and Kansas. And this is probably going to start shifting it to make it more of a 60-40 split, which is really interesting. And she said, and we talked about that, and we also talked about the Giants, and I'm embracing the madness. 2 games to the number 1 pick, ladies and gentlemen. I'm embracing it. Right. Yeah, I'm really happy about that. Yeah, that's going to be great. And if we end up as number 1 pick, number 1, they better fire Joe Shane. Number 2, we better trade the pick. I do not want to be there on draft night having them draft someone because, no, we do not need another quarterback. Colin Cowherd, you are wrong. Okay, stop it. We'll take Jackson Dart. But, and this weekend, there's a certainty that the New York Giants Las Vegas Raiders game will go to 2 markets, Las Vegas and New York City. That's it. No one else is going to want to watch that game. No one else cares about that game. More people care about the Carolina Panthers, the Hall of Famers team, since they are in first place in the NFC South. I mean, it's going to come down to Tampa Bay and Carolina next week, provided both of them don't, well, no, it'll still come down to that because right now Carolina is up on top of Tampa Bay because of head-to-head, and they'll end up playing next week. So, I'll make an early projection. There's your Sunday night game, Carolina Tampa Bay. I'm telling you, that's going to be the Sunday night game. There is no way. There's no way they're not going to have that as a Sunday night game. I really think it is. So, how'd you do in the Christmas vacation trivia?
Well, I got third place, so
There you
we'll
go.
take that.
There you
We'll
go.
take it. Yeah, Christmas
That's
Vacation. Gotta love it.
oh,
One
great.
of the great movies. Of course, you mentioned Home Alone. You got the Christmas Story. That's another great one.
Oh
And
yeah.
Elf is always a good one too. So yeah,
Oh, Elf
classic.
is good, but Christmas Story. Oh man, that's so classic. But Christmas Vacation. I mean, come on. Everybody knows a Griswold house.
Oh yeah,
Hey
I love a
Griswold, where are you
Christmas
going to put that tree?
story.
Those lights aren't twinkling. Thank you for noticing, Art. Uh,
Week 16 threw us a curveball last week. Eight backup quarterbacks Tripp saw action. Gardner Minshew was one of them. You had Malik Willis, Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson, Brady Cook, Max Brosmer, Quinn Ewers, and of course Chris Odolacum. But you know what? What's funny is if you would have told me these quarterbacks at the beginning of the season would be playing, look, 0% of them were rostered when the season started. So that's how crazy it's been. You spend 14, 15 weeks trying to craft your roster, and all things go out the window when Patrick Mahomes blew out his ACL last week. He gets replaced by a quarterback. You mentioned it, Gardner Minshew. He gets injured. Josh Allen outscored by Quinn Ewers in Miami. So, I mean, a lot of craziness. We do have a little bit of normalcy, which may carry you into championship week. Trevor Lawrence continuing to put up those good numbers. He's a top five quarterback in both fantasy points and fantasy points per game. Justin Herbert for Los Angeles delivered through the air and on the ground. Ashton Genty returning back with over 100 yards. That's for the first time since September. Chase Brown in Cincinnati was efficient. Puka Nacua, you and I were talking about it before we jumped on the podcast here to record this thing. He balled out with over 40 fantasy points. And Parker Washington of Jacksonville, he bounces back with 145 yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, the disappointments we shipped our way: Jackson Dart, Rico Dowdle, Michael Carter, Brian Thomas Jr., and Dalton Kincaid. They highlighted the list of disappointments. So we could air our grievances on them because Festivus was just the other day. So we could air our grievances on those disappointments.
but the other part of this is, and you listen, you've got to face facts. Jackson Dart. I mean, I had him as a quarterback, and I couldn't believe I only got point 0.2 from him. And because the Giant game was close, it wasn't a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, it's a rookie quarterback. You're going to have those games. Brady Cook for the Jets did not do well in his first start. He did. It was not good for him. And I want to flip it around though. Last week we said you want a defense, a streaming defense. New Orleans Saints. Hope you grabbed them because chances are they aren't available this week, especially if you need them for a championship game. They've got Tennessee. They had a big game against the Jets last week. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, hey, listen, we're in the giving mood. I mean, it is Christmas. It's time for gifts. We're going to give you
Ho
gifts.
ho.
We're going to give
Yeah.
you, hopefully, a championship. But still got to get over the line. You got some injuries to take care of. So we're going to hopefully help you navigate these waters. And don't forget, 3 games on Christmas Day, 2 games on Saturday. So we'll have 5 down before we even hit Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff. Mike, who you've got for imports, exports this week?
Well, you talked about the New Orleans defense. I'm going to start with the New Orleans quarterback, Tyler Shuck. He's grown comfortable in the Saints offense, making a strong case to be the team starter next season, despite having Rashid Shaheed traded away, losing Alvin Kamara and Devon Vele to injuries. Over the last month, though, he's finished as a quarterback 12, 6, 16, and sat at a quarterback 14 last week. He's an attractive streaming option this week, could be a good fit for a championship week if you are in need of a quarterback. Let's look at running back Raheem Sanders of Cleveland. Now, Quinshon Judkins is out for the rest of the season. He got hurt against Buffalo. That's going to open up the door for Sanders. He looks to be the lead back this week. Sanders had 11 carries for 42 yards. Of course, the status of Dylan Sampson could factor into this equation. He's dealing with a hand and calf injury. Sampson could be also worth rostering, but I'll say at this point, I want to put my faith into Sanders. Let's talk about one more. A wide receiver out of Las Vegas, Trey Tucker. 4 catches, 43 yards, 5 targets on 2 carries for 11 yards. And, Trey Tucker has been pretty well. I mean, that was a tough matchup last week, and the Raiders had a good job getting him involved. He has an easier matchup this week, faces the New York Giants. They're number 6 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing receivers. He would be a nice option. Who's your import, Tripp?
All right, we're going to start with a quarterback. And of course, the Green Bay Packers suffered an injury with Jordan Love going out of that game. Of course, it was a wild one in Chicago Saturday night. And the Bears, of course, coming back and winning it. The Bears, of course, control their own destiny. Green Bay needs a little bit of help. Malik Willis was in as the starter. And, of course, Willis looked competent, 9 of 11 for 121 yards, and 1 TD. However, he suffered a right shoulder injury, and that's going to be a big question mark. Now, Love is going to have to clear the league's percussion protocol before Saturday's game against the Ravens. Now, if Love is not ready, Willis is going to need to prove his shoulder can make it through the game. The other part of this is Willis's rushing upside makes him a viable quarterback, and he's available in a lot of leagues. Josh Jacobs also re-injured his knee. More passes and design quarterback runs could be the aftermath. Running backs, I'm going to stay with Green Bay because we mentioned Josh Jacobs did not play final quarter and a half of the game against the Bears after a goal line fumble. He had a nagging knee injury, limited to 12 carries in back-to-back games. He could miss his second start of the season. Now, Emmanuel Wilson drew the start and accumulated 125 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. Not bad. This week, they need to have him come through. It's a big game against Baltimore. It's a Saturday night game. It's going to be interesting to see how much Jacob plays. If he does, Wilson will be somebody to grab because Baltimore has been the 10th most friendly to running back scoring this year on adjusted fantasy points. All right, let's say you do have some injuries and you're looking maybe to pick up. I mean, listen, championship games are decided by 1 or 2 points. We've said that, stressed that all the time. All right, it's time to have another rubber ball bounce back here. Taysom Hill for a tight end for the New Orleans Saints. Played a season-high 19 snaps in Week 16, had 12 rushes and 42 yards. Taysom Hill's performance could encourage Kellen Moore to keep him involved in the backfield, especially the team down to its 4th-string running back. The Saints don't draw into the matchups like the hapless Jets. They do travel to Tennessee and face a Titan squad that, well, again, I thought that it was above average for the defense, and the offense, it may help, but he's been increasing in his use as a runner and a receiver, especially if Alvin Kamara remains sidelines. View Hill as a risk-reward target on waivers. Potential to be a league winner for you. Last but not least, I want to go to a kicker. And again, a couple of points could decide a championship. And if you're not sure about your kicker, think about perhaps Evan McPherson of the Bengals. Now, the Bengals have played better as of late, and they are looking. They rolled last week against Miami, and they're looking good. They want to close the season out strong. McPherson could be a guy who is available in your league, and he could help you out down the stretch for championship week. Unfortunately, we're not involved in any well, no, I shouldn't say that. I got 2 championship games. I have week 2s. I'm up by 20 in one. I'm down by 20 in another. So there you go. Hey, listen, if I bat 500, I bat 500. There you go. Yeah. Looking at 3rd place in one league. We're looking at 3rd place in the Rat League, which I think is phenomenal. But you play Stephanie this week, and if you lose, she has no kicker. So do you realize the unending abuse you're going to take from you may become our podcast chew toy. I gotta give Mac credit. That was hysterical. That was a hysterical line. That was a great line. If that does not have a team name, I don't know what does. I mean, seriously. Fantasy chew toy, podcast chew toy. That's great. All right. Well, The Christmas season is here again, as we mentioned. 3 games on Thursday. Podcast dropping early this week. And this will be the last podcast. This is the last week of fantasy for the most part. There are some leagues that go to week 18, but at this point, you're pretty much set with what your roster is. That's how you're gonna have to build at this point. We'll take a couple weeks off. Well, we're not going to take any time off. We're still going to be working. Actually, Sunday with the Sultans will be on every Sunday at 11 o'clock on FoxSportsNewJersey.com and the Fox Sports radio stations in New Jersey. We'll continue to do the Sunday with the Sultans broadcast. And that's a half hour if you can't get enough of us. And then we'll be back during the divisional week. We'll start to wrap up our fantasy and the fantasy season, and we'll talk about what's to come. It has certainly been an interesting season. I think if you're going to write the story of 2025, I think injuries really have been the key. And I think, I realize I'm stealing some thunder for one of our podcasts down the roads, but in terms of lessons learned, I've always been one quarterback. I'm thinking now you got to have 2 quarterbacks. I'm really rethinking that strategy, Mike. I think that's the one thing I learned this year, because I really, really hurt myself in a couple of leagues because I was scrambling for a quarterback at the last minute.
Yeah, and then some of the leagues that I took a backup quarterback, we struggled with quarterbacks as well. So, I mean, you can take 2 quarterbacks, but again, I would piggyback that theory and say, yeah, I agree with you, but then you also have the right backup quarterback on your roster, because if you have a backup quarterback who doesn't deliver, then you're talking a different game. So I really think talent really matters and the performance really matters from the players too.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned it earlier on, and I don't think we last week, how many teams were hurt by the fact that Lamar Jackson went out in the first half
Yeah.
with a bad back injury. Gardner Minshew got hurt. A lot of people subbed him for Patrick Mahomes. Jordan Love, the concussion, that hurt. I mean, I guarantee you, nobody started Malik Willis last week. Nobody started Malik Willis. If you had him on your roster, he was on your bench, because nobody. I don't know of anybody who said, "Oh, I think Malik Willis is going to play. I am going to put him in." So that's just.
I got to give props to you though. I mean, you and I kibitzed on our way to a golf outing this past year, talking
I know.
fantasy in June, and you called it. You said, I mean, now he wasn't out for the whole year, but you called it. You said Lamar Jackson is due for an injury. He was out earlier on in the season. Of course, he gets injured again. You called it right, spot on that one.
It was funny. It was almost like the announcer jinxed, because Sunday they talked about, if you were watching the game, they were talking about all the games that he had injuries. And they said he was like healthy. This is the first time really in a long time in the season. I think they start week 5, he started having issues, and they showed all the injuries. And like I said, 2 plays later, Lamar Jackson headed to the locker room,
Yeah.
questionable. And I'm like, okay, it's Tyler Huntley time in Baltimore. But, and if you're a Derrick Henry owner, you got to be not happy with John Harbaugh. Why is he not playing, down the stretch in that game? After he scores a touchdown, they pull him? What? What are you
Hmm.
saving him for? You got to make the playoffs first, buddy. Jeez, that was terrible. That was a terrible call. Anyhow, all right, I vent. No, and the one thing, I don't have a right to vent because I'm not a Derrick Henry owner. I don't have him in any of
No.
my teams. And that's the best part about it, I guess. You can sit there and kibitz, and you can talk about guys who you wish you take, guys who you wanted to avoid. And he was one of the guys that there was question marks. Oh, by the way, speaking of guys to avoid, I think somebody resembling the Hall of Famer and somebody resembling a guy with glasses made the comment, avoid the Jets. Garrett Wilson, not loving it. I saw a great stat a few minutes ago before we came on. Garrett Wilson leads the Jets in receiving, 395 yards. He hasn't played since the middle of October. What does that tell
Hmm.
you? What does that tell you about the NYJ? It tells me they stink. They're terrible.
And Brady Cook, I think, is definitely killing the value of Brees Hall. I'm just
Oh, yes.
questioning
Yes.
whether or not you should even start him this week, because I would maybe say he could be on the export list for Brees Hall because of that offense.
That offense is miserable, again, injuries. I'll be curious to see indeed what kind of changes they make. They obviously got to get a quarterback. I mean, I think Justin Fields is not going to see the field. Oh, I know what else I wanted to ask you about, and this is an interesting call. Miami, Tua is now third quarterback. They're not going to risk an injury. I think they're going to try and unload him in the offseason. Now, I was listening to the SiriusXM tailgate show, which I recommend on Sunday mornings if you'd like some good insight. Robert Turman made a comment. He thinks that part of this could be because Tua was chummy at the end of that Monday night game in the middle of the field with Jaylen Warren. And it was not a good look. After you lose the game, you're yucking it up, at the 50-yard line. And you kind of wonder, did that not play well in a Miami locker room that Tua questioned the leadership? That's the other part of it. So I wonder, was part of this benching a punishment? Was part of this this benching also a part they're going to move on from Tua at this point?
I mean, that could be part of it. You also look at Tua's injury history. I mean, he's a ticking time bomb when it comes to concussion. So factor that into the equation. We've talked about it on this show numerous times. And when Tua's healthy, he's spot on. And he has his ups and down games, but there's been many of games where he's been injured, out with a concussion, just not performing well. And that's been Miami's season. I mean, there's only one player that you could really rely on in that Miami offense this year, and that has been Devon Achane. He has been the heart and soul of that team. And, even Tyreek Hill, you talk about it last week on the Festivus show when we talked about disappointments. He was a disappointment with the injury. So again, like I said, only one player you could rely on, that was Achane.
And one of the reasons I'm in my championship game in one league, because I have him. He's been in the lineup every single week. He's more money. So anyhow, all right, we digress. Wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas, happiest of holiday seasons. Again, we will be and Happy New Year, because we won't be doing the podcast till after the New Year. We'll be in 2026 when we resume the podcast, or we pick it up as we normally do. We take some time off, but we don't. I mean, we just don't do a podcast. We don't take time off. We never take time off. We are always working. This is a 12-month-a-year job. Maybe we take a week. The coaches get a week or two. We take a week, play some golf, go to a golf tournament, spot at a golf tournament. But even when we're still talking. We're still working on fantasy, folks. I'm telling you, it's a never-ending job. That's why we do it. We do it for you. We're givers. Just ask Mac. We gave him a chance to play for a championship. He can feel that thrill. Of course, I don't think he's going to win, and I'm kind of hoping he doesn't, just because he's our podcast chew toy. Only kidding, Mac. Only kidding, buddy. Good luck. And good luck to everybody who's playing this week. He is the Hall of Famer, Mike Scheck. I am Tripp Rogers. Fantasy Sultans are here. You can find us online on Spotify and on YouTube. Don't forget, Sunday with the Sultans, 11 o'clock Eastern. It's on FoxSportsNewJersey.com and Fox Sports radio stations in New Jersey. We do what we can. We're giving presents all year, not just at Christmas time. We believe in Christmas every day. We want to pay it forward to you. We're giving you the tools to win your league, and hopefully you do. We are the Fantasy Sultans.
Ho, 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 and you are not.